Hi, good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to give you some tips for how to stay motivated and focused when you have an injury, especially an injury that takes a long time to get better. Now, for you who don't know me, my name is Mareka. I'm the physiotherapist from sportsinjuryphysio.com, where you can get online physiotherapy treatment. If you're new to the live streams, how they work is I present what I want to present, but you're welcome to ask questions as we go along. Pop them in the comments and I'll keep an eye on them. If you're watching this on replay and you've got something to add or you want to know something, feel free to message me or just pop them in the comments. Usually, especially if you tag me, I can see them easily and I'll come answer them for you. Excellent. Let's get started. So I've got 6 tips, or I've realized that there are 6 things that you need to do to stay motivated. And this is exactly the process that I take my patients through when I help them. And the first is that I always find out where they want to get to. Now, this may sound silly. If you're a runner, surely you're going to tell me, I want to be able to run. But you've got to be really specific because you need to know where you've got to build yourself up to. So, sorry, I've got an itchy nose. For instance, if we think of running, is it that you just want to jog a 5K? Would you actually like to do a marathon again? Are you an ultra runner who wants to do several ultra distance races in a year? All of this is significant because all of this will require a different time period that we need to rebuild the body. You can't really speed the healing process up. There are certain phases and steps that the body has to go through, but there are quite a few things that you can do to hold it back. So if you know where you need to be, then it's very easy to figure out what the stepping stone should be to get there. So make sure the first thing you do is go to have a sit down and just think about exactly what activity it is you want to get back to. Okay, so write that down. That's what I do for all my clients, that I know where they're going to. Then the second step is do not create a deadline. So with all other goal settings in life, the second step is always to say, I want this goal at this time. Injuries don't work that way. If you're going to set yourself a deadline with that, you're actually going to cause yourself to flare that injury up. The worst thing you can do is go and book a race in 6 months or 8 months from now, thinking that's plenty of time. By then I'll be fit enough and I'll be ready to go. Because you know what? In 6 months from now, you may not be ready for that race and you may end up pushing yourself because you've got this deadline that you've got to do it. Even if you're sensible enough not to push yourself, you then have the extra disappointment of not being able to do the race. So honestly, if you're recovering from an injury, especially one that takes a long time, don't go and book a race or put a deadline on your recovery period. Rather take it one day at a time, and if you find you're fit enough to do a 5K, then book in for a 5K race. But don't put that pressure on you otherwise. Step 3 is, where are you now? Okay, so I know I'm in my living room, but it just means, what are you able to do at the moment? So usually if I saw you in clinic, I would now be using this time to test you, to see what your body can already do. And I need you to write all of these things down for yourself because you're going to use it later on as well. In a few weeks from now, you're going to refer back to this to see how much you've improved. Now, things we want to look at for where you are now is things like, I'm going to take running as an example. Yes, fine, you can't run at the moment. But what can you do? How long can you stand for? How long can you walk for? Can you walk on any terrain or can you only walk on the flat? Specific exercises for the legs. Can you do squats? Can you do lunges? What are you able to do? What are you able not to do? Because all of that will tell us about what you need to do to get where you are. For instance, say I'm a runner who I can't run fast, but I can jog at the moment about 5K without hurting, and I can do squats and I can run up the stairs without a problem. That person's rehab program will be much different, or a lot different, from somebody who can just walk for half an hour before his pain kicks in, or who can stand for 20 minutes and then they've got to sit down. So there's got to be a different approach. But also, if you write all of these things down that you can do at the moment and what you can't do, then that's a really good measure for later on to see how much you've improved. Okay, so then step 4 is identify your mini steps. Let's think about running again. If you want to get back to running, let's take it, you want to do triathlons, you want to race triathlons. So you've got to be able to run fast. Now, what do you have to do before you can run fast? You've got to be able to just jog continuously. What do you have to do before you can jog continuously? You've got to be able to walk without any restriction, and you've got to be able to jump and hop. What do you need to achieve that? You need strong legs, and you need endurance and standing endurance. So you can see how we're breaking that down. Then you can even be more specific. You can be, okay, fine, my quads are strong, but my hamstring, I tore my hamstring, so my hamstring is the thing that we need to rehab first. So you have to find those mini baby steps, because if you focus on the big goal and the one that you want to be able to do a triathlon, and you're still not there, that's just going to demotivate you. So find little goals that you can review every 2 weeks, and that's achievable within the 2 weeks or 4 weeks, that you can tick them off, because that's really motivating. And you have to acknowledge these little small improvements that you make, because otherwise you'll just feel as if nothing's improving. Because if you are at the point where you can only walk a little bit before something hurts, running is a really long way in the distance still. So if you're only going to focus on that, you're going to give up. Find little bits that you can focus on, that you can achieve every few weeks, that you can tick off, and make sure that you notice them. Then step 5 is keep a diary. And you may have guessed this already, because I've mentioned that now already. So what you want in that diary is, on a weekly basis, look at what can I do now. So for instance, I can now squat with 20 kilos. I can run up the stairs without pain. I can sleep on both sides now without a problem. It's funny how often patients don't see things like that as improvement, because again, they're focusing on the goal of I can't run. But if you find that all of a sudden you can sleep in any position you want, and just last week you couldn't, that's a massive improvement. That's a sign that your body is getting better and it's getting stronger. Yes, fine, you can't run yet, but you're moving in the right direction. Okay? So if you don't write those things down, then people don't notice it. It's often only when I point it out for them in clinic and say, but that's amazing. You couldn't sleep. I'll read back the notes that I wrote 2-3 weeks ago, and they'll be surprised because they would have forgotten about things. And it is because as things get better, because you don't notice the pain, you also don't notice the improvement quite often. So in your pain diary, in your diary, you keep note of things that hurt, things that you can do. I like to choose a few activities for myself. So for instance, my highest level of activities, for some people at that point it may be walking, for some it may be cycling. Whatever you can do, just write that down. It doesn't have to be in too much detail. And also just note how much discomfort or how long it takes before discomfort kicks in. And then lastly, check in with somebody on a regular basis. Now, this doesn't have to be a physiotherapist. This can be anybody who has good listening skills, because what you want this person to do is to really listen to what you're telling them and remember what you said last time, and just kind of act as a sounding board. I don't know if you've ever had that moment where you had a big problem in your head, and the whole time in your head you tried to work it out, but you couldn't. And then you discuss it with somebody. And as soon as you say it out loud, you suddenly know what you should be doing, because you're hearing your own voice instead of just thinking about it. So talking about your injury and talking about your rehab and how you're finding things and how you're planning your week and what you plan to do next can be a really useful way of just getting perspective on things. And also, if it is somebody who listens well, they can point out for you that, listen, wait a second, you can do this now, which you couldn't do last time, because we lose track of that type of things. So find somebody that you can actually talk to that listens well. So those are my 6 steps. To recap, let's see if I can remember what they all are. The first is, you need to figure out where you want to go. You have to be really specific with that. Then the second is, don't give yourself a deadline. Take your time to get there. You'll get there when you get there. Then you need to check where you are now. What can you do at this moment in time so that you know what you need to do to improve? Then you need to identify those mini steps and those mini goals that you can achieve every few weeks. So you've got something to tick. And then you want to keep a diary. So you keep a diary of everything you've been able to do this week, pain-wise, anything like that. And then lastly, make sure you check in with somebody on a regular basis. Very well. So remember, if you need more help with an injury, you're welcome to consult me via video call. The link to my website is in the description of this video. But let me know if you've got any questions. Take care.